Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome to Succulent Sunday. Today I'm going to be working on my Portulacaria afra forest. It has been 3 months since I cut it back hard and I scarred up all the trunks with scissors. Today we're going to look at the results and give it its first pruning. Here is a look at the trees today. So the trees have grown in all these nice long shoots. They look really healthy. Today I'll be pruning those back and we'll be taking a closer look at the scarring on the trunk. Here is a close-up look at the scarring on the trunk. So the rings, those jade-like segmented rings, are disappearing and the trunk is looking more like a baobab with those kind of vertical serrations and smooth kind of bark on them. So they're looking really, really good. I'm very happy with the scarring operations. Here is a look at another tree that I scarred the trunk up quite heavily, and I think it's also looking really, really good. Before I get working on the Portulacaria afra forest, I'll show you some items that I've gotten from the thrift stores lately. Here is a look at what I've gotten lately at the thrift stores. Let's start at the back. I think it's an otter eating a fish. Soapstone carving, very nice, signed on the bottom. If you ever buy a soapstone carving new, made by an indigenous person, they're very, very expensive. So I was quite lucky to get this in the thrift store for just a couple of dollars. I also got this chair and this table. Now these are cast iron, and you can see the table. It's quite fancy. It's kind of got that I don't know, Victorian look to it, maybe. Fancy. So I thought maybe a small bonsai could go on top of that and it might look quite nice as an accent plant or even by itself. I don't know if I'll ever use the chair. It's got a little bit of rust on it, but yeah, I got a chair and a table. And then I got this wooden, I guess it's a jewelry box. It has pretty cool feet on it, these metal feet. And it's a nice wooden box, and I thought, well, maybe you could put a bonsai tree on it, sort of make it like a display table. I may have to cut it down in height, make it a little thinner. But yeah, maybe the start of a fancy display table for a bonsai. Here's an example of a pot on that table. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever use it, but I have it in case it looks good with some bonsai display. It's always good to have stuff like that on hand when you're putting together a display for a show. It is a nice warm day out today, plus 6 degrees Celsius, so I was able to carry the Portulacaria afra forest out here to the greenhouse without any protection. It's warm enough outside. It is getting colder later in the week. Thursday, the low at night is minus 12 degrees Celsius. And Friday, it gets even colder at minus 14 degrees Celsius. So the weather's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster ride lately. But it is getting towards the end of February, so spring is definitely on its way. I'm going to start the work today by cleaning up the landscape, picking out the weeds and any leaves that have fallen down. You can see there's a bunch of smaller leaves that have fallen off the trees. A whole bunch of weeds in here. In my plant room, because it's so crowded, it's really hard to get to the trees, which is unfortunate because it makes weeding very difficult. So next year I'll be fixing up the plant room so I have access to all my trees. I think that'll be so nice. My goal also with these trees is to repot them in that nice tokonami pot. This is just in a plastic or a mica pot at the moment, which, is they're great pots for developing trees in, but not so good for showing trees. They're kind of frowned upon because they don't look very nice. They've got this plasticky kind of look to them. And as they get old, they kind of fade a bit and they look Yeah, you can oil them and they look much better, but they always kind of have this plasticky look to them, which isn't so nice, especially if you're displaying your tree at a nice, higher level show. I'm just checking the trees over for insects now to see if I can see any crawling insects on them. Any problems health-wise? I'm not seeing anything yet. Oh, there's a little bit of scale on that one stem there. That's the only scale I've seen so far. Oh, another one here. Another one here. So a little bit of scale on this tree. Oh, another one here. I haven't seen any on the other trees so far. Another one there. It's very rare I get scale insects on these trees. Yeah, it seems to be only on that one tree. Very strange. Now I will do a preventative spray to make sure, there's no other insects crawling around. So I think I'd better do that now before I start working on it. There's another bit of scale there. Just on that tree. That is very strange. It's only on one tree. And I'm looking hard to see if I can see it on any other trees. And I'm just not. Oh, one on this tree. Yeah. Hiding underneath. Little scale insect. Another one here. Another little blister. Oh, and there's one in there too. Little blister. Okay, I better spray these. I've got my spray bottle here. I have 1 part dish soap to 40 parts water, so a fairly dilute mixture. And I'll start by spraying underneath the trees. Rotate the trees around so I get good coverage. And then I'll come above, spray from the top. And then just go over each tree, making sure everything is covered with soap and water. In all the little crevices and everywhere. Okay, I think that is good. So I'll let that sit for a little bit, a couple of minutes, and then I'll thoroughly rinse it all, giving the trees, a good rinse and rinsing the soil out also, flushing all that soap out of the soil. So the trees will have, a good thorough watering, which isn't so good after I prune them, but I'll certainly tip the pot up, get all the excess moisture out of the soil I can, and I'll leave them out here in the sunshine, which should be happening later today, which should help dry the soil out a bit. Portulacaria afras don't get root rot quite as easily as jades do. So they can take a little more water than a crassula. So all the rocks in this planting, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and all the way back to here are all cemented together. So they lift out as one unit, which is kind of handy for repotting. So I don't know if I'll be using these rocks in the new pot or not. It all depends how they fit and if they look good. I may try and upgrade them to the newer rocks that we collected a couple of years ago. All right, it's time to rinse. Here I go with the rinse now. Start from above and again rotate it around, getting all angles on the trees. I've cleaned up my workbench and the pot has stopped draining. But there is still a lot of excess water in this pot. So what I need to do is tilt it up and drain all the excess water out of the soil. Okay, so what I'll do, I'm going to tilt the pot, and I will take away my turntable for starters and clean that off. And I will put this on one side like that, and then I'll tilt the pot up. And you'll see a tremendous amount of water flow out because of the hydraulic action of the water. It has a taller water table now, so there's lots of water pouring out now. Here is a look at all that new water flowing out of the pot. You can see it's starting to drip down to the ground now. So yeah, you know, all this water is coming from the pot just because I tilted it, and it's quite deep, this puddle. So yeah, that gets an amazing amount of water out of the pot. So what I've done is I've thoroughly watered this soil, which is really good because it makes sure every part of the soil is saturated. There's no dry spots or anything. And then tilting it up gets rid of all that excess water. Finally, after all this prep work, I can lower the tree and begin the pruning. All right, here I go with the pruning. I'm going to start on the main tree here. So down below here, I have a few suckers coming off the trunk. Do I want those there? This is a difficult question because if I let them grow, it would help thicken up the trunk. I don't think I want them there. I think the trunk is getting quite thick. I'm going to try and thicken the trunks up by growing the top more than suckers coming off the bottom. Because otherwise I'll end up with scars down here. So instead of that kind of baobab look to the trunk, which doesn't have like branch scars usually on them, I would have branch scars, and I don't think I want that. So they are coming off. That's my decision. Now there's nothing to say you couldn't grow them large and then prune them off and the scars would eventually heal. But I'm aiming to show this someday. Okay, now, so going up, I hard pruned this trunk off here, and I have a new shoot here growing, which is really, really nice. Yeah, it's a good looking shoot, that one. There's a new branch growing here on it. There'd be one going to the right also. I should explain why I'm pruning it now, like why not leave it till later. I generally let these branches grow till they start kind of drooping, and then I prune it. I mean, you could leave these branches grow all summer and then prune them off. But I think maintaining the balance of the tree, the vigor on the tree, if you let these shoots grow too much, maybe they start taking off and some of the other branches would start dying off. So it's always kind of a compromise between growth and control. Keeping your tree, you know, the growth controlled or letting it run wild. So I think, you know, letting it grow this long is a good compromise. It's nice and long, I prune it back. Then I let it grow that long again, prune it back, and so on. And just keep repeating the operation. It's sort of in between letting the tree develop thickness and keeping the tree controlled and refined. If this tree were in total refinement stage, I wouldn't let them get this long even. I would just, you know, every time a new shoot extends a few leaves, I would pinch it back to try and keep the foliage really tight. But these trees are kind of in between that developing phase and refining phase. So I'm kind of going halfway between pruning and growing. Hope that makes sense. That's what I'm doing. So let's take it back. Let's take it back to here for now. And I'll prune halfway between nodes, allowing for a bit of dieback. Now I have a branch coming out the side here, which is kind of nice. I do like this branch. So I'm also going to prune that back, I think to here. To here? I'm trying to think what direction I want that branch to grow. It's coming kind of, in this view, as the front of the tree, it's kind of coming straight towards me. So I'll definitely want to redirect it as early as possible. So I'll prune it back to here. And I'll get a new shoot growing this direction. There's one at the back that's kind of growing parallel to the trunk line here, and I don't think I really like that. And the internodes are very long. You can see the lowest one is, the branch starts here and then the internode goes way up here. There's nothing halfway between. I'm going to prune it right back to here. Now let's keep following this trunk line up. So I was scarring this branch. I was hoping to get a bud coming out the front here, but I didn't get one. And there may be one coming in the future. You never know. Just looking at my flaking bark here. So I need to prune the tip of this branch off. Prune it back. I'm going to go right here. Kind of keeping a bit of growth there, and maybe something will develop in here and I can prune it back further. This one I'll prune back to here. Taking the tip off, making it compact. So that's kind of got this trunk line pruned up. Now, this trunk line up here is really, really thick, and I'm not liking it. This side of the tree is thinner. It's got more growth up here. And this side, I like this part of the trunk line, but I don't like this vertical thick part. It's too thick. I think I'll prune it back and then decide if I want to keep this or not. It's one of those decisions that might come after I see what it's looking like. I'm just pruning these back. Prune this one back to here. And prune this one back to here. I'm going to prune this one. Well, should I? Maybe not. Yeah, it's definitely, a big apex here. Which isn't bad. It is the thickest trunk. But I don't know. I guess, if I'm going for taper, I've got really thick here, really thin up here. So I have a lot of taper over a short distance, which is kind of nice. I'm going to leave it for now. It may develop into something nice in the future. I'll take this branch back and this one back. And I think even this one, I've got two shoots here. I'll take this apex back there. This one, I was talking about removing this one. It's growing, hard pruned this stump off, and then a branch grew kind of behind, which is, the extension of this stump here. So I've got to keep it. I guess, I want it coming forward, so if I prune it to these set of leaves here, there's one leaf coming forward and one back, so I can redirect that branch. So I will prune it just to redirect the movement here, even though it does need a bit of thickening up that branch. There's a long branch coming off here. Well, let's do this one on the front first. It's coming kind of out front. I want to redirect it as early as possible, so I'll come right back to here. Like that. There's another one coming down lower, and I don't think I want this lowest one. It's kind of getting low on the trunk. I have better branches above, so I'm going to take this one right out. Like that. Even this one may come off someday. Some dead wood in here. Removing some dead bark from where I pruned it. Sort of a transitional area here. There. Cleaning that pruning point up. Now I've got one coming off here. I'm going to prune it back to, I guess, right back to here. Really short. I've got two on the inside here, and I've got to think, do I want those? Like this one is running parallel to this trunk line. I want everything kind of fanning out. So it's a tough decision. I do kind of need a leader for this trunk line here. I don't think it's that one though. I'm going to take it out. Kind of opens this area up. I'll do a little more cleanup here. Just kind of getting rid of all the loose bark and pruning stubs from where I hard pruned it. It's healed over really nicely. I always worry when I hard prune into this really old wood how it will heal, but it always seems to heal quite nicely. And then I think, this would be the leader for this branch or this one coming up here. I've got one on the inside here. I don't think I need that one. Again, it's just kind of makes it too cluttered on the interior here, so I'm taking it right out. And then this leader here growing up, I've got one growing back in towards the center of the tree. I'm going to remove that. It's just cluttering up the tree. I've got one coming off a branch like this trunk line that grows in towards the center of the tree back here. I'm going to take that one right out also. It doesn't need to be there. It's nice to get all these new little shoots after hard pruning because it gives you branch choices. So you just keep the ones you like and remove the ones you don't like. Now I've got one here. I've got this nice branch here. I don't think I need this one down low. It doesn't flow at all. It's kind of 90 degrees to the trunk line, so I'm taking that right out. And it also blocks the trunk line behind it. So that kind of cleans up this trunk line. I've cleaned up this trunk line, most of it. I still have to do some at the back. Let's look at this one now. So it comes up, it has a lot of good movement. I pruned this stump off and I haven't got anything growing off of that stump. I do have something growing here, so I'm going to prune that back to there. And it's a twin branch, so I've got two branches going from one spot here. This one's growing back, so I'm going to prune that one right off. It just doesn't flow. So that kind of gets that trunk line pruned up better. Now there still is a stub here, which as this develops may get pruned back flush, or maybe something will develop here once it's outside in the summer. You never know. You never know with these trees. I've got a branch here growing across the design of the tree. I'm taking it right out. Going across the center. I've got a little shoot on the inside here. I don't need that. It's just cluttering up the middle of the tree. Off of this trunk, you can see there's a vertical branch developing, which is nice to have something come up the middle of the tree. Could be a future apex here. This branch I'm going to prune back short. This branch I'm going to prune back short. There's one kind of cascading here. I'll prune it back shorter. Keeping it for now. I may not keep it. I may keep the one developing more upright, but that'll be a decision for the future. Here's a branch that divides into a Y. I'll prune this one back to here. And then this one's growing over top of the other branches, so I'm going to take that one out. It's just shading out the other branches. And then I've got one coming forward here. I've got to decide. I don't think I want that one. It kind of grows across the tree. Doesn't flow outward, so it's coming right off. Nice branch, wrong location. Okay, so that's kind of got this part cleaned up. Yeah. Now let's look at the back of that. we've got a nice extension coming off this trunk line. However, I've got some clutter here. Where is this coming from? I think it's coming off of that vertical one here. It's sort of growing in an empty spot here. I'm just going to take this big leaf off so I can see what's going on. Yeah. I'll prune this back. I may want to keep it, I don't know. I'm just pruning it back short. Did I get that other branch out of there? Take that leaf out too. Oh, here it is. Just fell down. Okay, so let's see. I have one coming off the trunk line here. There is kind of like a bit of room for a trunk there. I don't know if I want it, but probably not, but I'm going to keep it. It's not hurting at the back there. Okay, so this vertical trunk coming up the middle here, I'm going to prune it back shorter the shoots on it to here and here, like that. Kind of shortening it so it's got room to grow, and it'll have movement to it and a bit of taper. It'll get it going in the right direction eventually. Off of this branch here, I have a shoot that's... I've got like 3 branches growing from one spot there. I'll prune the big one off shorter. The one on the inside I'll prune off. And I'll just have it divide from the 1 to the 2 here. There's a shoot out the back here, I'll prune shorter. This one can get pruned shorter. So here's this apex. Yeah. I'm going to have to think about this one if I want to remove it or not. Difficult decision. I do have this shoot out the back. I'm just going to take the tip off of it. I think I have the main tree pruned up now. So now I've got to decide. I've got to decide about that trunk line. It's a big decision, so let me look at it. So here it is. If I block it off, you know, maybe making the tree shorter. Big cut. I don't know. So I have 2 options. I can grow this part of the tree taller to kind of make my tree that height, or that height, or I can prune it back to here and then kind of grow everything out gradually. This is very, very thick here. Beautiful branch. Like, this is just a beautiful branch. I don't think I have the heart to prune that off. I just don't. I've developed it for so many years, and it's got so much character and taper to it that I can't take it off. So that leaves me with the option. I've got to grow this canopy kind of up to here, even though I don't have anything really thick in this area, but I think eventually I will. I'll have this trunk back here, maybe this one. There's maybe this one will be quite thick. So I think that's the plan, is to keep it. Now I could just prune off this part, but then I think it really brings attention to this side branch. But is that a bad thing? Again, you know, I've got all this taper here. I'd be kind of foolish to cut it all off and throw that away, I think. So I'm going to keep it. Design around it. Build this up, grow it. You know, maybe let this side of the tree grow unrestricted over the summer. Keep this side pruned back tight, and maybe I'll get this part thickening up so eventually the tree looks all, you know, it all blends in and looks good. So I have equal thickness all the way around. So I think that's the plan for the main tree. I think it's all pruned up now. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Now I'm looking at my scarring. Let's have a close-up look at it. Here is a close-up look at that scarring. So I'm just going to You can see the bark, how it kind of peels away, leaving more of a smooth trunk below. You can see in some places it doesn't even look like ridges much anymore. It's kind of smoothed out. It's like a skin. So I think I'll get my toothbrush and I'll just kind of brush the trunk, kind of getting rid of the flaky bark. And this is all just experimental work, this scarring of the trunks. I wanted to see what would happen, and so far I'm really liking the results. It takes the trunk from something that looks like a, that segmented crassula or Portulacaria afra look, and makes it look more like, a baobab, which is what I'm trying to grow these trees to look like. So I think it's helping me achieve my goal. Okay, so that's kind of cleaned the trunk line up a bit. Do I want to do any more scarring? Maybe breaking up some of these segments? I can do that. So it looks less stripy and more kind of natural, even though the elephant tusks do leave these stripes. So you can see the bark removed. So that will form like a thin skin of bark across that. Yeah, just to make it look a little less like I did it with scissors, or elephants did it, and more natural now. I think that's good. I'll see what happens. I think after a good summer's growth, it'll have a good tough skin around that area. I'm going to prune up all the rest of the trees in the forest, so we'll come back and see how it all looks in the end. I've got my Portulacaria afra forest all pruned up for today. I'll show you how much I pruned off, and then we'll fly in for a look at the trees. Here is a look at the amount I took off today. So all kind of fine branches, the new growth. I didn't do any major branch pruning or anything. It was just kind of trimming it up, getting it ready for the growing season. I've got my Portulacaria afra forest all pruned up for this succulent Sunday. The next operation on this forest will be the repotting into the new pot, rearranging the trees and the rocks to make a really nice landscape. So that'll be coming up, and that should be a lot of fun. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.